Already watching, maybe. All right, so we are live. Fantastic. You guys ready to go?
Hell yeah.
Before we went live.
Always.
All right. 3, 2. Dave, I got a question for you. You ready for this? Are you ready?
Let's hear the question, then I'll tell you if I'm ready.
Okay. If I gave you 100 chances, 100 throws under center as an NFL quarterback, how many completions do you think you could get?
Who are my receivers?
You have like one good receiver,
Okay.
one decent receiver, two really bad receivers, and a decent running back that can catch the ball.
Well, that was a trick question for you because the answer is still 0 for me.
Let's ask our guest, Chris Scheim. Scheim, how many completions do you think you could get off?
I could get more than Kendall Hinton, so I could get one.
Okay, that's true. Kendall Hinton is the Broncos' famous "they had no quarterback." So Dave, let me recalibrate the question. If you have an elite offensive line though, how many completions do you get off? Like we're talking like 2015 Cowboys offensive
like this year's Green Bay Packers offensive line.
Yeah.
I would say I'd get lucky and get one completion. Are we counting interceptions as completions too?
Nope.
No, absolutely not.
Nope.
Because that's the only way I'm getting more than one.
This is not like the tongue-in-cheek Tom Brady's last completion as a Patriots quarterback was to Logan Ryan. That was
my thing would be I'd be like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We are gonna run like 10 straight plays of just shotgun, huck it to the sideline, quick out, like we're gonna send it, and then immediately run a screen. That's where I get my completion, and that'll be my one completion.
Pretty much. I mean, like that's really all I think I could get away with. Like I would say I would give myself 1.5 over under. That'd be my own personal over under. I don't think I could possibly get like more than 2, even if they were like dump off passes, like to a James White or something like that, or like a Todd Gurley. Like I just couldn't do it. Like I would just have so much trouble. And obviously you got like even like a mid-range level pass rusher staring you down. Like forget if it was like Aaron Donald coming across the line. I mean, I would not get up. Like
would you rather try to tackle Derrick Henry or get tackled by Aaron Donald?
I'd rather try to tackle Derrick Henry because I think I might actually live through that experience.
Well, because think about it. Like you could Henry could try to run by you and you could just like dive at his feet and he could just leap over you and you don't touch him.
Stiff arm. Yeah.
And I could be the first.
If Donald hits you, I'd be in a million pieces.
I would be snapped in half.
I could also become the first person to ever get piggyback ride into the end zone too if I tried to tackle Derrick Henry. Like
I actually did that one time in high school football. I carried a kid for like 5 yards into the end zone on a pick 6.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Tremendous. Was it Matt Schaub that you picked off? Because he threw like
no, I picked off a kid at Catholic Memorial. I ran it back 82 yards.
Wow.
A kid was on my back for the last 5 yards. I fell on the ball and couldn't breathe for like 10 minutes.
Wow. You got the full weight of a person on your back and then you fall on the ball. That cannot be very fun.
It was, and I am slow. Let me tell you, I am slow.
Yeah, I'm not that fast either. I can't blame you. I mean, that's also cool. You get to carry someone in your back. That's a cool story to take with you. But Scheim is joining us here tonight. We're doing an NFL award show. We're going to give out the usual ones, the Offensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, all those regular ones. And then we have some ridiculous ones that we're going to throw in there along the way. So, gentlemen, are you ready to commence the first ever Crossing State Lines NFL award show?
Damn right.
Let's do it.
All right. We're going to start off with Comeback Player of the Year. So I listed my top 3. This is a pretty obvious choice anyway. My number 3 is Ben Roethlisberger. Had to give him a shout just because he was so injured last year and he actually looked good this year for most of the year at least. My number 2 is Aldon Smith, who missed like 3 or 4 years in the NFL because of substance abuse issues and then came back and
got caught doing a bomb threat at like a San Francisco airport.
Not great.
Not what you want to see.
Not what you want to see. But he did have a good year with the Cowboys at least. So there's that. And then my winner is Alex Smith. I don't think there could possibly be anybody else than Alex Smith.
I had Alex Smith number 1. It's just like this award was designed for people like him, and I fully expect to give it to Dak Prescott next year when he comes back from that ankle injury. So
yeah,
Dave?
Jake, I had pretty similar list to you. I didn't have Aldon Smith on my list. I had Gronk as my number 3, Roethlisberger as 2, Alex Smith 1. But I mean, Alex Smith, giving it to anyone but him is would be a travesty. That guy has earned every single vote that he's going to get and every single snap that he's getting now with the Washington football team.
The fact he's playing professional football again after that injury is insane. Like, it is unheard of.
And the amount of infections and stuff that that happened, it's just crazy. He's like
it's literally an ESPN 30 for 30 story. Just this Jeremy Schaap or it just all over it.
His leg looked like a bag of cottage cheese. Like that's what it looked like. And the fact he's still on the football field is incredible. And I think I tweeted it out today, but I agree with you, Sean. I think Dak Prescott's a shoo-in for it next year. The only other person I can see competing really with him is McCaffrey, who missed most of this year. Saquon Barkley as well. I mean, he also missed the entire season. So those two will have a run at it. But Dak Prescott, the injury he suffered, he comes back and has a year like he was going to have this year. I think he's absolutely a lock for it. So, yeah, I like that. I mean, Alex Smith, unanimous. Look at that. Unanimous decision.
Congratulations, Alex Smith.
I have a feeling the next one's going to be unanimous as well. So, defensive rookie of the year. My number 3 here was Jeremy Chin. He's of the Carolina Panthers. Had 2 fumble recovery touchdowns in a game this year against Minnesota, which is ridiculous. He had like 117 tackles too, had a pick, so pretty decent year. Number 2 for me is Patrick Queen of the Baltimore Ravens. And not to get ahead of ourselves here, but I'm going to assume we all have the same number 1.
I would assume so. The other guy I would like to mention, though, I'd also like to mention Antoine Winfield Jr. in Tampa Bay. I think he doesn't show it like on the stat sheet. It doesn't look like he had a great year. Like he had 3 sacks, 1 pick, 1 fumble recovery, 2 forced fumbles. But like overall, when you watch him and the actual impact he has on the game, he is electric.
Yeah, Winfield is a baller. I had him on my list too. I had him 3. I didn't have Queen on my list. He would have been my number 4. I think Winfield, though, changed that defense. They were always pretty good against the run, even last year. But this year, they became pretty decent against the pass. They weren't an absolute sieve against the pass, which is incredibly important when you have Tom Brady and you're putting up 35 points a game.
Yeah, that defense needed a safety, and he was the guy for the job.
That's an oversight on my part. I'm assuming we all have Chase Young at number 1.
Yeah, it's not even close. He's calling for Tom Brady, and I'm calling to give this man a trophy. So
kid's been as advertised. He was living in the backfield against Philadelphia in a game they needed to win. And look, Washington. I mean, first of all, I just want to say I called it in my week 1 overreactions that Washington would win the NFC East, and they won the NFC East. Not by virtue, not really by trying. I mean, they kind of just backed into that spot as every NFC East champion does.
But like, at least they had like a legitimate NFL defense.
Yes,
like they have a crazy boy band in Young, Payne, and Sweat, all on the defensive line there. But they are nasty.
And who's the linebacker they have? It's really good. What's his name? I can't remember. Not Kerrigan, the younger guy. I can't remember what his name is. He got a penalty early last night. I can't remember what his name is.
He's escaping me as well.
They have a good team. The defense, I should say. Alex Smith is he's always been a competent game manager quarterback, and that's literally all you can ask for in the NFC East is a game managing quarterback, considering other than Jalen Hurts of late, really no quarterback fit the bill in the NFC East.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself and say Nate Sudfeld will never be a great starting quarterback, but he'll probably never be a great starting quarterback.
No. I mean, I don't think we're getting ahead of ourselves. He's been in the league for years. This isn't like a first-year guy.
He's in the league.
Nate Sudfeld's been around. When they said Nate Sudfeld, I thought they were talking ex-Patriot tight end Nate Sudfeld, and then realized that, in fact, it's a quarterback, and I got very nervous for the Eagles.
The fact there are multiple Sudfelds in the NFL is something we need to investigate. We should just cancel the season for now until we can find out what's going on with the Sudfeld.
Also, can we just talk about what a freak Chase Young is? He ran down Jalen Hurts yesterday from the opposite side of the field.
Unbelievable. He is an absolute animal.
And
it's just crazy.
That was something I thought of too when Ron Rivera and also Jack Del Rio got hired in Washington, 2 defensive-minded guys. The fact that they got to get Chase Young in there, like the premier defensive player from the draft, like dream come true, like you said, Sean. Like it's like that is what they wanted, somebody to mold like that. And boy, is he been good. And like you said, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, like it's a it's a damn good line they got up there in Washington. Tom Brady's going to have to get some good work out of. He didn't make my list, but the fourth guy on my offensive rookie of the year list would have been Tristan Wirfs of Tampa Bay. He's had an incredible season, but they're going to need great line play if they're going to hold off Washington in that divisional game.
Yeah, and they're going to have to hope that Mike Evans is at least healthy enough to play, which isn't looking great, but he's day-to-day, so you never know.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, Tom Brady's, he's gotten used to playing big playoff games without his premier wide receivers, and I think having Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski, that won't hurt. I mean, Mike Evans.
They have Scotty Miller, too. Don't you forget about him.
That's true. Discount Julian Edelman is on that roster. Offensive rookie of the – I'm sorry, Dave, what?
Well, no, I was just going to say, this isn't even related to the awards, but is there any doubt that James White is going to end up going to Tampa?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. And it's also close to home for him. That just makes all the sense in the world.
That's true. Yeah. Let's not think about that now. Let's try to think positive thoughts. Speaking of the Patriots, offensive rookie of the year, my number 3 is Michael Onwenu for the Patriots. He's done it all on the offensive line. I could have put Tristan Wirfs there, but I wanted to give some Patriot a shout out on this list. My number 2, I really grappled with this. I really wanted to give it to Justin Jefferson, but I couldn't not give it to Justin Herbert. Like, Justin Jefferson's had an electric year, but Justin Herbert shattered records as well, and he's legit. He's legit.
Justin Herbert can play. I was very low on him in the draft. I very much thought he was the 3rd, maybe even 4th best quarterback in this draft. And I mean, so far he's playing with better talent than Burrow, but I mean, he's looked the best out of those 3 early first round quarterbacks, and it's not even close. Like, that kid can sling the football.
Yeah. I love Justin Herbert. I was completely wrong on him. I too was pretty low on him on the draft. I was not sure he was an early first. I thought he was more of like a late first, early second kind of guy. But I think one other rookie we can mention here too, he's not going to win the award, but James Robinson for Jacksonville.
Yep, undrafted.
Undrafted guy, won the job, 1,000 yards, didn't even play the last 2 weeks. So
he's the first ever undrafted rookie to start on opening day at running back. And he ended up running for 1,000 yards.
That's crazy.
It was an absolutely electric season, and he's a stud. And they have him to go with Trevor Lawrence, assuming he gets picked number 1, which I think is pretty safe. And I mean, and you throw in DJ Chark, and that's a pretty good young nucleus there.
For sure. That Jacksonville team is a very appealing job for a coach and GM, barring Shad Khan isn't actually going to have roster control, because that's just asking for trouble. But I mean, I think James Robinson absolutely deserves an honorable mention here, but it's without a doubt, it's Herbert and it's Justin Jefferson, because I mean, when you're breaking a Randy Moss record, you're pretty good. And Justin Jefferson was electric. Granted, a lot of it was in garbage time because Minnesota just wasn't good enough this year. Right. But Justin Jefferson was probably my most exciting rookie to watch. But Justin Herbert's just awesome. I love that guy.
I mean, it's hard not to give it to him. I mean, the guy came on. It was obvious he was going to keep that job, and credit to Justin Jefferson. He had a great year. He was very integral to my fantasy team. That's for sure. 1,400 yards. The kid was awesome. And maybe Minnesota or somebody, Pittsburgh, can call up the Patriots and give them a little advice on how to draft wide receivers.
Be nice.
Because even if the Vikings ended up trading away their best wide receiver they've ever drafted, they at least knew how to draft him. So they had that going for them, which is nice. If Dave returns to us in the coming minutes, which there he is. Look at that.
I'm good.
So next up, we have an award that we came up with, which is the Better Luck Next Year award. That is the best non-playoff team that missed the postseason this year in the NFL. So my number 3 was the Dallas Cowboys. I had to put him on there only because Dak Prescott got hurt, and I really wanted to see what they looked like with him. I feel like if he was healthy, this team could have gone 500 and won the division. Unfortunately, they were rolling with Andy Dalton, and I can't even remember the other guy's name at this point. Anybody remember his name?
Cooper Rush, that guy? No, Ben DiNucci.
Ben DiNucci. Thank you. Yes, Ben DiNucci. Yeah, they weren't going to win the division with them. But I feel like the bones of that team, at least offensively, are still very, very good. So And Mike McCarthy is a good. I feel like once Dak Prescott went down, the writing was on the wall for the Cowboys. My number 2 is the Miami Dolphins, who were very good until they played the Bills at any point this year when they got curb stomped twice. Real letdown in Week 17 for them. Could have made the playoffs if they won, or even got some help. They didn't get any of that, and they got whacked by the Bills. They missed the playoffs. A little bit of a disappointment. I didn't put them in my biggest disappointment next up, but they definitely are a little bit disappointing for how they ended the season. And number 1 for me are the Niners. The Niners, I think, were the best team that didn't make it because they had so many injuries. And also, I think Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches in football. So I think he can make it work with really anything. And they had some impressive wins this year. So even with all the injuries they had, he still kind of worked around it. So those are my best non-playoff teams. I think the Niners will bounce back next year, no matter who they have under center, as long as it's not Nick Mullins, for God's sake. Just get somebody who is not Jimmy G, but who can kind of throw the football. So Niners, better luck next year.
I almost put the Dolphins here. I think the Dolphins just ran into a Buffalo buzzsaw. Like, it's just, I don't think that's anything wrong with the Dolphins. I think getting rid of Chan Gailey today, not to timestamp this, but we are live streaming it. So, alas, they cut bait with Chan Gailey today. I think that's the best decision they could have made. Yep. The amount of little 3-yard outs that Tua was throwing was far too many. And it was just too tricksy with the play, the play action reads and just the read options. They just didn't look clean. And it seemed like it was play design. And I think it's because Chan Gailey, I don't think Chan Gailey's called read option ever. That's why Fitzpatrick looked better in the system. And so I think if they get a younger guy in there that it has more experience with that read option offense, the Dolphins are going to look a lot better next year, especially having the number 3 pick, even though they were a 10-win team. But the team I actually put here, I put the Vegas Raiders. As much as I thought John Gruden coming back to football was going to be a disaster, I think he started to gather a lot of building blocks for a really good football team. I think their defense was better than the numbers suggested. I think they played pretty well overall. Jonathan Abram is a bad man. And I'm a huge Derek Carr guy. I would prefer that the Patriots somehow sneak him away in a trade because I think Gruden is in love with Marcus Mariota. But ultimately, I think they have the building blocks for something good. They revitalized Nelson Aguilar's career. Henry Ruggs is super discount Tyreek Hill. And Josh Jacobs can play. He can play. And Darren Waller's a baller. That guy.
Best tight end in the league.
That guy is an absolute baller. So I really like the building blocks that the Vegas Raiders have. And I think next year could be, it's just tough because they play the Chiefs twice a year and they ended up beating the Chiefs and almost beat them a second time. So I really like the way the Vegas Raiders are being built.
I do like the Raiders. The Raiders are going to be in an unfortunate position though, because they not only, like you said, have Mahomes in their division and they play him twice, but Herbert's on the come up too. And they're going to play him twice as well.
That's a tough division.
So that's tough. And then going to Denver is never easy. So right there, you've got a lot on your plate. And I don't know if, obviously, kind of like what you alluded to, if Derek Carr really is the guy there to go forward. Probably not. But I like what they have. They have a lot of great offensive weapons. Aguilar, like you said, had a real renaissance. Darren Waller. I like Travis Kelce, yes, by name is the best tight end in the NFL, but he really isn't a tight end, in my opinion. I think Darren Waller overall might be the best tight end in the league. It's really him and Kelce at this point. Kittle was too hurt, but when Kittle's healthy, he'll be back in the conversation.
For sure.
Especially best blocking tight end. But anyway, I do like Vegas. Again, the only reason I didn't put them is because I think their prospects are going to be tough going forward just because of the division they're in, which is, off the top of my head, probably the hardest one in the AFC, at least, I think.
Maybe the AFC North.
Yeah, maybe the North I forgot about because they have Burrow coming back. The Browns made the playoffs. Ravens, Steelers all made the playoffs. So that's tough. So the West and the North are difficult. But yeah, so Dave, what do you got?
I had a few teams that I wanted to mention. I personally was not a huge fan. I think the Dolphins beat up on lesser competition, and that kind of inflated their win total. I'm interested to see how they do because the way the schedule works in the NFL, everyone knows you play basically the slot that you finished in your division and other divisions. So I'm sure they'll play a much tougher schedule next year. I think they definitely have the right fixtures there. I mean, Brian Flores is a great coach. I mentioned the Vikings. I thought the Vikings have a really talented nucleus, but again, As me and Jake have mentioned, we're not fans of Mike Zimmer, and I think eventually that needs to run its course. They need to find a new coach. Kirk Cousins wasn't great this year, but he also wasn't bad. 35 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. That's a pretty good year.
And I think after week 9, he was like one of the best quarterbacks in football.
Yeah, exactly. He had a really, really strong finish. It's just that defense really let him down for the first time, I think, since Mike Zimmer's been there. Was really, really bad. The corners were terrible. No Xavier Rhodes this year. He's in Indy. But overall, I would say the best team, I'm with you guys, the 49ers, to me. I think the only disappointment that they weren't healthy enough to show how good they can be, because I think this team is awesome. I wanted to put the Cardinals on the list, but I thought that they were an absolute train wreck down the stretch.
Oh, don't worry. The Cardinals will be spoken about very, very soon. But I do like it. I mean, yeah, Miami definitely had the benefit of an easier schedule. I do like Will Forrest has cooking there. I think getting rid of Chan Gailey, like Sean said, is a great move, because I almost feel like he was sabotaging Tua. Like that's kind of how it felt. Like
it felt brutal.
Yeah, it was tough. So I mean, now that he's out of the picture, hopefully Tua can, let Tua cook, like with Russell Wilson. Like let him cook, let him do what he can. So yeah, those are our better luck next year. Vegas Niners, better luck next year out west. We'll see how you do. You're both in very, very tough divisions, but good luck. Maybe you'll be better once you're healthy. Thought the Rocky Mountains would be rockier or more. This is the biggest disappointment. So I got 3 teams on here. First off, I have the Vikings, who Dave mentioned. Dave was so kind when he said that we don't like Mike Zimmer. We actively very much don't like Mike Zimmer on this podcast.
We have a saying at EEI, me and John, the producers of Dale and Keefe, say if Mike Zimmer is playing outdoors and on the road against a team with a winning record, you always bet on the other team, because he sucks. Since like 2015, I think he's like 2-15-2.
Yeah,
it's stupid.
It's his hallmark is defense, and that defense has shown up here and there. And this year, I get they had a lot of injuries, but that's kind of what your MO is. You're a defensive guy. You got to make it work. Like, that's what you're known for, is your defense. Like, make it work. You got one of the best free safeties in football. Make it work. Like, you're a good coach. Well, you are supposed to be a good coach. Make it work. So they're on my list almost by default, because I always feel like they have a lot of tools to be a great team, and they have one of the best rookies in football this year. So they should have been better. So number 2 on my list is actually the Niners. I feel bad for putting them here because they had a lot of injuries, but you got to the Super Bowl last year and you were like 7 minutes away from winning it. And then this year, I know you had a lot of injuries, but you were 6-10. So just by default. And my number 1 is the Arizona Cardinals, because I expected more from this team. And the way they finished the year was so disappointing. You have one of the most exciting young players in football, maybe a top 2 or 3 receiver at the worst in the NFL, and a lot of good players around that. And you had a chance to make the playoffs, and it fell apart. It all fell apart.
Yeah, the Arizona Cardinals are my disappointing team, and it's not even close. I was so upset. Like, at the beginning of the year, I felt like Kyler Murray was an MVP candidate. And they started off 2-0, then lost 2 straight, and then 1-2. It's like they were weirdly streaky, and they weren't consistent enough to just be one of the best teams in football when their offense should have been absolutely electric. And I don't blame it all on Cliff Kingsbury, because I think he adapts pretty well. And I know Kyler Murray was banged up, but it sucked, man. Because like there was like a few week stretch, and like the fantasy football people will know, where Kyler Murray just like stopped running the football. Like, he was running the football every time it was 3rd and short, 2nd and short, or a goal line situation or anything like that. Kyler Murray was just taking it and running it, and then he just stopped. And that's when the offense like decided to fall apart. When he was immobile, that offense just crumbled. And so it's tough because it rests so much on Kyler Murray, but at the same time, like, I felt like the defense wasn't consistent enough. Just the offensive production as a whole was just not there. And this should have been a playoff team. Like, the Bears should not be in. They should be in over the Bears, and they should be ashamed that the Bears got in over them.
I honestly, I think Washington's more of a deserving playoff team than the Bears are.
Yeah.
Like, at least Washington, like we said earlier, has like a really elite defense, and I feel like they could actually, like, they have a nice, fun, young team. Like, I actually could have fun watching them at times. Like, you know who's happiest about the Cardinals being a disappointment? The Saints, because the Saints are always ripe for an upset, and the Cardinals could have been the team to do it to them this year.
Don't count the Bears out. Bears already took them to overtime with Nick Foles at the helm. Just wait until Mitch Trubisky takes the helm.
I apologize for not having any faith in Mitch Trubisky, but I have absolutely no faith in Mitch Trubisky.
Nobody believes in us. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be happy to be proven wrong because I think the Saints are overrated like every single season. And they've proven it every single season. God bless them. Like every year they go in with high aspirations, great records, and then they get to the playoffs, play a team, and they're like, what is a football? And they get out there and it's like they've never seen it before. And I'm sure they're still hanging their hats on that pass interference call that never was. Even though they probably would have gone to the Super Bowl and lost anyway to the Patriots. But whatever. Dave, what is your biggest disappointment?
Well, one quick thing about the Bears, too. You'd be surprised to know the last 4 weeks of the NFL season, they've the number 3 scoring offense in football. So Mitch Trubisky has been much better than I think anyone could have imagined.
Mitchy Trubiscuits.
Yeah. Gonna get that extension from the Bears, we think, huh?
Definitely.
I have a couple disappointing teams. I have the Texans as my number 1. I just thought you have Deshaun Watson, and you have I know they traded Hopkins, and that was an absolute travesty, but they still have Will Fuller, who was in and out of the lineup. They have Brandon Cooks. They have David Johnson. Like, that's enough that you shouldn't be as bad as you are. And the defense, Romeo Crennel is a good defensive coach. He's a little bit older. He's not a head coach, but he's a good defensive coach. No matter where he's been, they've had good defenses. And this year was just the complete opposite of that. I think they were 31st against the run. And you saw it yesterday against Derrick Henry, 252 yards or whatever it was. Brutal. I mean, he just ran whatever he wanted. He just did whatever he wanted.
They said you need 250 yards to get to 2,000, and Derrick Henry said, bet.
He said, okay,
I'll do
watch.
it.
Like, you got it.
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
Got it. And are you sure you don't need 300? I could try.
And I also had one storyline. My biggest disappointing thing of the year was Joe Burrow getting hurt because I love watching that guy play. And I just hope that he gets back to where he was because he is so fun to watch.
That Bengals team has to draft an offensive lineman in the first round like it's no tomorrow. Like, they need to the goal is to keep him healthy at this point because they have a lot of young receiver talent between T. Higgins and why can I not think of it? Thank you, Tyler Boyd. And I mean, Mixon's not great, but like he's fine, and Gio Bernard is fine. Like, they're fine running back pair. But between Higgins and Boyd, and then Joe Burrow, man, just keep Burrow upright, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the only thing they know how to draft is wide receivers.
Yeah,
like, that's it. That's all they know how to draft.
And Burrow makes everyone around him better. He's a great leader. He's a really good football player, and he's tough and he's mobile. Like, you don't need elite players in the offensive line. You just need good to above average ones, and he'll take care of the rest. Like, he doesn't need a lot. He just needs a little help.
What are the Bengals this year? 4th, 5th?
In the draft?
5th?
They won 4 games. So they're 1.
Yeah, they had a tie though, so that's
I think they're 4th or 5th.
Yeah, because I know what's his name, Sewell won't follow them, but if he did, that would be the one they should probably take. I saw a mock draft that had them taking a wide receiver, and I'm like, that would be very Bengals if they did that. Like, they have a top 5 pick, they need everything but a wide receiver, and they take a wide receiver. Because, like, yes, offensive line help is what they need for Joe Burrow, considering how he ended the season this year, or how his season ended, rather. But they need help, like, everywhere. I mean, they are not a good defensive team, except for wide receiver, really, is where they don't need any help.
But at this point in the NFL, you don't, like, you can just, if you build a good offense, then it's like the defense will come. Because, like, honestly, like Nick Saban even said it, at this point in time, like, good defenses don't beat good offenses anymore. It's the other way around. Good offense is always going to beat a good defense. Nowadays, it's the playmaking defenses that are good. Like, you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, teams that can cause turnovers and sack the quarterback. Those are the things you need in the NFL now. It's no longer just play solid defense. We're going to be stiff in the red zone. Like those old Patriot-style defenses, those aren't what work anymore. It's just not how your teams are going to score points. You look at the Buffalo Bills, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, you look at the Green Bay Packers. They're going to score points. It's about limiting the points and trying to win the turnover battle.
Yeah. And, once in a while you get lucky, like the Patriots and the Rams when it was 13-3 in the Super Bowl. Like, every now and then you get lucky. Like, but you also have games where Nick Foles puts up 40 points on you in the Super Bowl. Like, you can try to limit the damage best you can, but sometimes it just doesn't go your way. You just got to build the best team you can, and I do agree with the Texans. I wanted to circle back to that real quick. They were not a good team going into the season, but Deshaun Watson led the league in passing yards. Like, the guy is one of the best young quarterbacks out there, and they are just pissing away his career there. I mean, if I were him, I'd be like,
they have no draft picks. They have no cap space. They have nothing going. Like, it's as good as Deshaun Watson is, that coaching job sucks because you have nothing to work with. You have outside of Deshaun Watson, you have nothing to work with, and you're like, Will Fuller's a free agent now. You probably don't have the money to sign him, so you're going to be stuck with a bum ass receiving core now. Your running back is David Johnson, who's getting old and he's washed up, and Duke Johnson just hasn't played well. And your only offensive lineman is La'el Collins that you spent 2 first-round picks on. Like, that team is in shambles.
Yeah, dude, they're in rough shape. I mean, you got to hope they bring in a coach or something that knows what he's doing, or has, it's like they're not going to get top of the line guys probably, but they might get like a Eberflus or something, steal him away from the Colts. Just get somebody.
If Jack Easterby's really in charge, don't be shocked if that's where Josh McDaniels ends up.
That's true. That's a good point. J-Mac, baby. It's a good segue because our next topic is the So Hot Right Now award. These are the trendy head coach candidates. My 3, I feel like, were no-brainers to me. Robert Saleh, who's already getting interviewed for jobs in San Fran, the defensive coordinator. Brian Daboll in Buffalo. I would be shocked if Brian Daboll is still on the Buffalo Bills staff at the end of the summer, or by the end of the winter, rather. And number 1, a guy that I can't believe has not been hired yet is Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City, who I think this is finally the year somebody hires him, because it's a joke he wasn't hired last offseason. But this is the year I think he gets hired. And I think I know Atlanta's already interviewing him, but whoever gets him, Jacksonville might be a good landing spot for him, just because you could go there and get Trevor Lawrence. Like, starting off with Bieniemy and Trevor Lawrence, that's automatically great for Jacksonville fans. Like, I would be psyched if I was them, because he's already done great work with the young quarterback in Kansas City. You might have heard of him. And then he's going to Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. That could also work out well. So I feel like Bieniemy's got to be the top of everybody's board. But Daboll has shot up there. He really has, with the work he's done with Josh Allen.
Brian Daboll's my number 1, and it's not even close. This guy, right now in the NFL, it's about hiring coaches that understand how to create a good offensive system, whether that's enabling guys to do that, like Matt Rule has done for Joe Brady in Carolina, or finding young minds like the Kyle Shanahans and the Sean McVays and the Cliff Kingsburys of the world. You need to go out, and the Matt LaFleurs of the world. You need to go find guys who are going to be progressive with their offenses. They're going to do what makes things easier on their quarterback, whether it's a lot of play action, a lot of early down passes. You need to find guys who do that. And Brian Daboll has shown that with Josh Allen, he is not afraid at all to throw like crazy, because it's just more efficient. Nowadays in the NFL, it's just more efficient to throw on early downs, on late downs. It doesn't matter. Throwing the football is just inherently more efficient. There's more reward. And so he's shown the ability and willingness to do that. If Brian Daboll doesn't end up as the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, we have failed as a society, and everything has gone wrong, because Daboll plus Justin Herbert would be so much fun to watch next year. I can't even explain it to you. Forget about defensive head coaches and all this shit. Brian Daboll should be at the top of every team's list. Period. No questions asked. This guy can coach his ass off. Yesterday, he had a backup quarterback throwing 20-yard fades to a tight end down the sideline against the Miami Dolphins defense that was supposed to be really good. And he's sitting there in his chair up in the bleachers, just rocking back and forth. He was cool as a cucumber. This guy knows how to call an offense, and Brian Daboll deserves a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'd be shocked if he wasn't on another team. It's those two guys are the two big offensive-minded coaches. Saleh, I mean, if Atlanta continues to do what they do and hire defensive-minded coaches, then Robert Saleh is a shoo-in for Atlanta.
And Matt Eberflus. Those are the two guys you want to watch out in Atlanta.
Those are the two, Eberflus over in Indianapolis. Like, those are the two guys. First of all, Indianapolis, quick shout out. Frank Reich, the true mind behind the Eagles Super Bowl victory. Frank Reich. Because it all went to shit after he left. But yeah, so Dave, who's at the top of your list?
Yeah, I think Sean hit it on the head. It's an offensive league, and I think you're behind the eight ball if you're hiring defensive coaches as your head coach right now. And it's trendy. Like there's just happens to be more offensive coaching talent than there is defensive coaching talent that's head coaching ready. That's just how it is. Certainly it will bounce back. Eventually it will go the other way. But you have a lot of really talented offensive minds. Joe Brady is going to get a bunch of interviews, I'm sure, just from the stuff that he did with Joe Burrow. And teams are going to say, let's try to pair our young QB up with a young coordinator that's an up-and-coming guy. And it's twofold, too. The owners want people in the seats. How do you generate people in the seats? You score more points. How do you score more points? You get a better offensive system. You score more points. The Bills scored 56 points yesterday against one of the best defenses. And like you guys said, half the time they had a backup who nobody really wanted. Matt Barkley, no one really wanted him.
He sucked.
Yeah, he's not even any good. And then the other guy I didn't hear mentioned was Arthur Smith for Tennessee, the coordinator. Really turned around Ryan Tannehill's career. And, if you can do that for Tannehill, I know Tannehill is the natural talent, the mobility, the good arm.
Renaissance.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy, just put him in position. He can coach anybody. He's going to, I think, get a job too. I think you're looking at 3 or 4 at least of those guys being hired.
I wonder if you see, like, if Arthur Smith, I know this would be sort of smart, low-key clever, but this isn't what they're known for. But if the Jets did decide to keep Sam Darnold, if they would bring in Arthur Smith, because he worked his magic on Tannehill, would it work on Sam Darnold? Who knows? I mean, he could use a change of pace, and Adam Gase leaving is probably the best thing he's ever happened for his career.
The best thing for the Jets is to exercise anything attached to Adam Gase at any point in time. You look at anybody that's worked or under or for Adam Gase, as soon as you take them away from Adam Gase, they become better. Whether it's Ryan Tannehill or Kenyon Drake or Jarvis Landry or anybody, it doesn't matter. You take them away from Adam Gase and they immediately get better.
Devontae Parker last year, too. He was a little hurt this year, but last year he finally broke out and had a great season. So the Mea Culpa Award is up next. That is the player you were most wrong about. I had a little difficulty filling this one out because number 1 was easy. Number 3 for me was DJ Moore of Carolina, who I saw on the fantasy draft boards, and I was like, really? Like, DJ Moore, like, what's Teddy Bridgewater going to do? How's he going to throw it to him? And sure enough, he and Robbie Anderson both had 1,000-yard seasons.
The Panthers actually had 4 players with over 1,000 total yards. Yeah. Anderson, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, baby, one of my low-key fantasy MVPs. Also, I know we didn't mention him earlier, but shout out Antonio Gibson for Offensive Rookie of the Year up in Washington.
Ooh, yeah.
Shout out him. Not going to get anywhere close, but I love Antonio Gibson. Great player. Especially since it didn't work out with Darius Geis up in Washington. So they hit on Antonio Gibson. Number 2 for me is David Montgomery in Chicago. I just kind of get snake bitten by Chicago running backs. And he almost knocked me out of the fantasy playoffs this year. So David Montgomery, very good player. Number 1 is the most obvious thing in the world, and that would be Josh Allen, who I'm very critical of. I do not like Josh Allen very much, but I can't ignore the tape. I mean, he's had an unbelievable season, an MVP caliber season. As we'll get to later, I do not think he's going to win the award, but he's at least in the conversation for it. And Brian Daboll has really helped him unlock a lot of things in his game. Brian Daboll and a certain other person that we'll get to later on in the program. But Josh Allen was my easy number 1. If you look in our archives, mostly, I think it's only on CastBox now because we deleted the other archive on iTunes, but you can listen to our preview of last season where Dave and I embarrassingly go in on Lamar Jackson the year he wins the MVP. And we're just like, oh, I don't think he's very good. Like, come on.
Guy.
People are hyping him, like, buy or sell. And Dave and I are like, sell. The kid sucks. And he goes out.
Lamar Jackson won me so much money last year.
Yeah. And then he has, like, the most prolific. That was the most prolific.
5,000 to 1 odds to win the MVP. It's a beautiful thing.
That's unbelievable. And the kid goes out there, and then this year becomes the only quarterback to have multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. But yeah, so we were very wrong about that. This year was I should have called it the Lamar Jackson Award because that's pretty much who started this whole feat for us was Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson was last year. This year was Josh Allen. But you know what? It might be good news for Josh Allen not to win MVP because that award is like cursed at this point. I mean, no MVP this century has won the Super Bowl. So maybe it's good for him that he don't have that chip on your shoulder. I don't know. But he's number one for me with a bullet. Absolutely. I was wrong.
My guy, so I had Josh Allen on my list. I was very much wrong about Josh Allen. I was still a hate on Josh Allen and the Bills as a whole, but they're also winning me a lot of money in the gambling world, so I'm not necessarily complaining. The other guy on my list that I had, Justin Herbert. I was very wrong about Justin Herbert. I said it earlier. Coming out of the draft, I didn't think he was going to be great. I thought he was going to be mediocre at best, Blake Bortles at maximum kind of level. Like it didn't feel good to me. But I think a lot of it, looking back on it, was probably the Oregon system. It just didn't fit him, the way he plays. He is not afraid to attack down the field, which I think was one of the biggest criticisms of him coming into the league. He didn't know how to throw the deep ball effectively, or at least he wasn't willing to. But this year he proved that he is more than willing to, and he does it in a spectacular fashion. So I would say Justin Herbert is the guy I was absolutely most wrong about.
Does it sting to hear yourself compared to Blake Bortles, you think? Like, that must just hurt.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah.
I don't use that lightly. It's not an easy comparison.
What's the best comp for his game? Blake Bortles. I remember watching – I watch a lot of college football, but I remember watching Blake Bortles in his bowl game the last year he was at UCF, and I was just like, what's the big deal with him? Like,
yeah. It was the age of big prototypical quarterbacks,
right? Because his comp was he could be a Big Ben type quarterback, like huge guy, tough to bring down, and well, he I guess was both of those things, but he was also very easy to intercept. Because
and again, he also went to an AFC Championship game, so
he almost knocked the Patriots out of it.
Yep.
So could have been a Jacksonville, Philadelphia Super Bowl. Thank God the Patriots not only saved that from happening, but fulfilled the wishes of a lot of people by losing. Anyway, Dave, who were you most wrong about this year?
Well, I'm with you guys. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, those are my two guys. And I'd also throw Ryan Tannehill in there. I was not sure that he was going to be able to do this again. But again, all three of those QBs proven me wrong. And I think they're all really fun to watch. I think Tannehill's mobility, he's very careful with the ball. He doesn't turn it over. That's always great. Justin Herbert has an incredible arm. And Josh Allen, I love his toughness running. Like, I love how he runs over people and he doesn't go out of bounds. I mean, I'm not sure how long that lasts for his career. Andrew Luck certainly has had some trouble staying healthy doing that, but for while he can right now, I mean, it's really fun to watch.
And how much, Shime, you're the betting guy. How much money do you think you could win if you put money on Andrew Luck to win Comeback Player of the Year next year? Could you even?
I bet some places are offering it, but I mean, I don't think he's coming back. He's done so.
But I mean, if he plays like $5 on that bet, depending on the odds.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get that at plus 5,000, you'd be in decent shape.
Exactly. It's like Kevin says on The Office. Anytime anybody offers you 10,000 to 1 odds, you take it, no matter what it is. Bruce Springsteen. No, somebody. I forget if John Bon Jovi wins an Oscar, I'll be a rich man, or John Mellencamp. That's what it was. But anyway, so Shine, before we get into the big four, the Mount Rushmore Awards, you want to do your superlatives?
Yeah, I had some Shime Time superlatives. Okay. We mentioned his name earlier. The most exciting rookie to watch was without a doubt Justin Jefferson. He was electric. That kid can play. I haven't enjoyed watching a receiver play like that in years. So for me, I absolutely think he is the most exciting player to watch. A nice little Patriots spin for a superlative here. Best player the Patriots should have drafted. I'm going to go two ways with this one. One, it's going to be Kenneth Murray. You could have taken him. Instead, you traded out, and the Chargers took him right at that pick. So bad job by you because you needed the linebacker help. The other guy, not this past draft, but previous draft, you took N'Keal Harry before A.J. Brown. Before A.J. Brown. Bad job by you. That's dumb. Those guys should both be Patriots, and it's a sad, sad day. And then the biggest dink in the NFL award goes to none other than Patrick Mahomes. He is the biggest dink I've ever seen. I can't stand Patrick Mahomes. I understand that I'm alone, like Tom Hanks in Castaway, but by God, I can't stand Patrick Mahomes. So you, sir, are the biggest dink in the NFL.
Wow. Well, I do. Every time A.J. Brown makes a catch, it's like a dagger through my heart.
That catch he made yesterday was just, I was like, oh, imagine having that.
we will look back on that draft of wide receivers and say, wow, why didn't the Patriots take any of these guys?
Imagine having the confidence to just throw the ball 50 yards in the air and know your guy's going to go get it.
Not me.
Couldn't be me.
Not me since 2009 Randy Moss have I had that experience. Or Rob Gronkowski even, I guess, also kind of fits the bill, but not quite the burst of a Randy Moss. So the core 4 awards here. We'll start with Coach of the Year. Might shock you, but Brian Flores not in my top 3. And I might be a little, I guess, snake bitten or biased by how they ended the season, but I mean, they had a chance to win and they're in, and they weren't expected to be this good this year, and they didn't win. You could say, I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick would have made the difference in this game. Let's put it that way. He didn't allow 56 points on defense. My number 3 is Ron Rivera. He beat cancer, and he led the Washington football team to the playoffs. So that at least was good enough for me to get him on the list. And then I feel like Coach of the Year is down to 2 people. My number 2 is Kevin Stefanski. My number 1 is Sean McDermott. I feel like those are the 2 it's down to this year. I gave it to Sean McDermott. I get that Kevin Stefanski led the Browns back to the playoffs, and you could probably find me on Twitter saying it's a joke they hired him in the first place. But great on them. Got the Browns to the playoffs. That's awesome. But I feel like people expected the Browns to at least be this good. I don't think anybody expected the Bills to be this dominant. Even people who thought they'd be really good didn't expect them to be this dominant. They were one of the best teams in the league this year, and I think Sean McDermott is a big reason why.
I don't even have Sean McDermott in my top 3. I left him off my list. My 3 were, I had Flores at 3. Number 2, I had Matt LaFleur because, I mean, he coached one of the best offenses, most efficient offenses in football. This team is 13-3. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC for a reason. And I mean, as a head coach of the Green Bay Packers, he's like 26-6. Like, that's stupid good. And so Matt LaFleur is my number 2. Number 1 is Kevin Stefanski for me. Yeah. I think what he has done with Baker Mayfield in a span of 16 games is remarkable. I think it's a big deal that he got the Cleveland Browns back in the playoffs. This team can win football games. And with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, anything can happen at just about any time. And so I actually kind of expect them to make a little noise in the playoffs too. I don't necessarily think they're just a shoe-in for one and done. I think that Pittsburgh team is very beatable. So my number 1 candidate with a bullet is Kevin Stefanski.
That game is ripe for an upset.
Yeah.
Ripe for an upset. I agree. I think as much as I think Sean McDermott deserves it, I do think the Browns getting back to the playoffs is going to get Stefanski the award. And I would have no problem with that. He's definitely a top candidate for it. So I'd have no problem if he won it, especially since so many naysayers like myself were like, really, this is the guy you're hiring? Like, there are a lot of names out there and you're hiring this guy?
In one season, I believe since 2000, in one season, Kevin Stefanski has more wins as head coach of the Browns than any coach in their entire tenure with the Browns, except for Romeo Crennel and like one other guy whose name I don't even know.
He has more than Hugh Jackson?
Yes. In one season.
Hugh Jackson had like 1 win.
I think he had 1 win. But he had more wins in one season than 95% of the coaches that have been through that organization. And that team finally has consistency and stability, and Kevin Stefanski is the reason why.
It's a good move. I derided it. I'm sure a lot of other people did, but that was a good move. So kudos to the Browns. Hopefully you can get a little upset action going. Dave, your picks.
I also had McDermott as my coach of the year. I just think winning the AFC East. I know Brady's gone, but that's a big deal. You take it. You beat the Dolphins pretty badly. You sweep through the division. You dominate everybody. I just think that deserves some mention there. Stefanski's my number 2. I had Flores number 3. I think you have to credit him for the job that he did. He ended up taking a team last year that was literally a dumpster fire, and they didn't want to play anyone good. They somehow pull off a 5-win season and then come back and double their win total and just miss it on the playoffs. I know the last game will leave a sour taste in people's mouths, but this team still is lacking a lot of areas for talent. They have a lot of big names that they signed and players they've developed. So it's not like they're the same team they were last year, but they still have a lot of holes to fix, and they still got 10 wins in a really, really good AFC this year.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean. I was, like I said, I might be a little biased just because how the season ended with them and they had a chance to kind of win and you're in. But yeah, I mean, Flores was definitely up there in terms of consideration for me. I like him a lot. I think Miami made a great move hiring him. So kudos to Brian Flores. Better luck next year for the Miami Dolphins. Defensive player of the year. Number 3 for me is Xavier Howard in Miami. I think that dude's a beast. I forget what broadcast it was on last night, but maybe it was Nate Burleson or something was saying like Xavier Howard, he proves there are still shutdown corners in the NFL. And I'm like, a cornerback won defensive player of the year last year. And we need Xavier Howard to prove there's still shutdown.
Forget that.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, look at Jalen Ramsey as a shutdown cornerback too. Like, we don't like. There's always shutdown cornerbacks in the league. Like, are they going to be 2014 Darrelle Revis? Probably not. But there's always going to be a shutdown. Like, get the hell out of here. So Xavier Howard was great. Number 2 for me is T.J. Watt in Pittsburgh. He had a great season. He was unbelievable. But they should honestly just rename this the Aaron Donald Award for the duration of his career because it's Aaron Donald for me. Again, I mean, I think Aaron Donald is just the most indomitable, incredible defensive player of his lifetime. I mean, he could retire today and be a Hall of Famer. Like, that's how good Aaron Donald is.
Yeah, Aaron Donald was my number 2. I think a lot of people have Aaron Donald fatigue a little bit. It's very similar to the Patriots fatigue and the Tom Brady fatigue.
The LeBron James, Derrick Rose MVP situation.
And not it's sort of, but like it's going to a guy that deserves it. Like I think TJ Watt deserves the Defensive Player of the Year award. I mean, the guy leads the league in sacks with 15, leads the league in tackles for loss with 23. Like this guy can play, and he was on arguably the most effective defense in all of football all season long, and that'd be the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think personally, TJ Watt deserves this award.
Yeah, I would have no problem if you won it, but I favor Aaron Donald a little bit more. Dave, are you going with Donald or are you going with Watt?
I've decided since 2 years ago I'm giving Aaron Donald the award every year. I think he's the best player in football at his position, bar none, and I think that the gap between him and number 2 is enormous. So my number 2, because Donald gets the award every year for me, would be Xavier Howard, and I think him and TJ Watt are my number 2 and 2A. I think those are the 3 best players. Him and those 2 and Donald are the best 3 by a mile. I don't think there's anyone even close to those 3. And you could have it really depends on what you value more. Like, do you value the plays behind the line of scrimmage, the sacks, the tackles for loss, setting the edge, drawing double teams, drawing holding penalties, or do you value shutting down a side of the field, interceptions, blanket coverage? Like, it just kind of depends what you like. And for me, I'd probably lean towards Howard, but I kind of flip flop back and forth every day when I see Watt dominate with his rip moves and up and unders and around the edge, the bend around the edge. So I could go with either. Should
also note that the favorite pick at the beginning of the year was Nick Bosa, and then he got hurt and his season was over. So
I also think the separation at defensive tackle isn't as wide as you think it is. Like, in my opinion, DeForest Buckner is like, he is just rapidly right on Aaron Donald's ass as the best defensive tackle in football. He led his team in sacks as the defensive tackle on, again, an arguably one of the best defensive football for the majority of the season in the Indianapolis Colts. And he was also the best run stopper on that team. DeForest Buckner is a force to be reckoned with in the middle of the defense. And so I think that's kind of, for me, what set TJ Watt apart is I felt like DeForest Buckner was just so much in Aaron Donald's grill this year as the best defensive tackle in football that TJ Watt kind of just ran away with that edge spot. And so for me, that's kind of why I ended up with TJ Watt.
Makes sense.
I think that's fair. I mean, Buckner's an absolute animal, and I think shame on the 49ers for not finding a way to keep him. I know you get a first-round pick out of it, but that's just
DeForest Buckner is a game changer.
Yeah.
Honestly, forgot that he was not on the 49ers anymore.
I mean, there's a reason why the cap is so high. It's so that you keep the game-changing players. You know, you can let go of the above-average guys. You can let go of the Pro Bowlers. You don't let go of pros. You don't let go of Hall of Famers type talent. You don't let go of those guys. They don't come around that often. You can't let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Offensive Player of the Year. So I have a policy personally that I don't give this award to quarterbacks because quarterbacks overwhelmingly win the MVP every year. So I give this to non-quarterbacks. So for me, my number 3 is DeAndre Hopkins, who that catch he made against Buffalo, I still think is probably the play of the year. That is one of the most unbelievable catches I've ever seen.
Yep.
And the guy is just an animal. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the league. Number 2 is Stephon Diggs, who had an incredible season for Buffalo, became the first wide receiver to be traded and then lead the league in receiving yards. He had over 1,500. He had a ton of touchdowns. He was a game changer for that Buffalo offense. But number 1 for me is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had over 2,000 rushing yards. Not a lot of guys in the NFL have done that. And the guy is an absolute monster. He is one of the few running backs that stirs the drink for a team. I mean, it's really, you could argue Dalvin Cook is kind of like that, but the receiving game there is so good too. And yeah, A.J. Brown's a great receiver, but I mean, Derrick Henry is, like we just said at the beginning of the podcast, like, would you want to try and tackle him? Like, do you even want to, like, if he was coming at you and you're Earl Thomas, say, would you even want to try? Like, just look at the dude. He looks like he's built of bricks.
Look how it happened for Josh Norman. He literally sent him into orbit. Like, we were doing a Santa tracker to see where Josh Norman was in the orbit of the earth because he got absolutely launched by a stiff arm.
Yeah. The guy is unbelievable. And I usually just, I know Offensive Player of the Year gets won a lot by quarterbacks too. And I feel like it's tough because obviously wide receivers and running backs, they very rarely win the MVP. So I like giving it to a non-quarterback for Offensive Player of the Year. And I feel like the best non-quarterback offensively, if you're going to ride with one of these guys, it's got to be, I think, either Derrick Henry or Stephon Diggs for this year. Side shout out Davante Adams, who also had a ridiculous season. Dalvin Cook had a great year too. But when I think of the most dominating, like one of the best non-quarterback offensively, Derrick Henry's got to be at the top of the list for me.
I also don't give this award to quarterbacks. I think the very same way as you. I feel like it's become the MVP is the best quarterback in football, and then the offensive player goes to the actual best offensive player. And Derrick Henry is definitely the winner here. The only thing I have to say about Derrick Henry is he's done something that's only happened twice in NFL history, which is a player ran for 2,000 plus yards and scored 15 touchdowns. It's him, Terrell Davis, and that's the end of the list. Like, there's nobody else. That's a great list. Yeah. And Derrick Henry he's gonna be a Hall of Famer, and that's the way it is. But the other 2 guys I had on my list, you mentioned one of them, Davante Adams. For me, 14 games played. This guy had 18 touchdown catches, like an insane amount of production out of Davante Adams this year, to the point where it was like almost unbelievable. He also had 149 targets, which is insane. Like, at one point, I thought Aaron Rodgers was just going to target him to the point where he would like shatter Michael Thomas's reception record for a little bit. But the touchdown numbers were just undeniable. And the other guy I had on my list as third was Travis Kelce. Like, this guy almost had the most receiving yards in the NFL as a tight end, which has never happened before. And that one game that he didn't play probably was the difference in that. He only lost to Diggs by just over 100 yards. Kelce had over 100 catches, 11 touchdowns, 1,400 yards. That is an insane season as a tight end. And he is kind of, between him and Tyreek Hill in that Kansas City offense, it is just insane, the production that they give out. So Travis Kelce was number 3 for me.
I don't know if you guys saw they posted the total fantasy points for tight ends this year. And it was pretty much Kelce, Waller, and like there was 100-point drop between them.
And the next one was Robert Tonyan. And that's only because he caught like 10 or 11 touchdowns.
I didn't even know he was a tight end. I thought he was a wide receiver. I didn't even know Robert Tonyan was a tight end.
Oh, man. You didn't know Robert Tonyan? Come on.
I know who he is. I played against him in fantasy playoffs. I thought he was a wide receiver.
Just think about that, though. Between Tonyan and Davante Adams, they had a combined 29 touchdowns. They're on the same effing team.
It really, I will say it is. I'll get to it in a second when we talk about him, but the way you are about Mahomes is the way I've always been about Rodgers. I can't stand him. Like, everybody always talks so highly about Rodgers. I've never liked him, ever. But he does the guys he's thrown passes to for touchdowns. Like, you wouldn't even believe how them exist. Like, the guy he hit last night for a touchdown, I don't think I've ever even heard of him before.
So the best receivers he's ever thrown to is like Davante Adams, and then down here it's like Donald Driver and
Hey, do not
Like,
be first Jordy Nelson.
James Jones and Jordy Nelson.
Jordy Nelson deserves more respect.
He's fine, but like outside of maybe Davante Adams, none of those guys are ever going to get to the Hall of Fame. They were never consistent Pro Bowlers. They were not all pros. Like the amount of the success Aaron Rodgers has had throwing the football to literal bums is outstanding. And so I think it's hilarious that a guy like Robert Tonyan came out of freaking nowhere. He only caught 52 passes, but 11 of them are touchdowns.
Unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. It's like he was better with output, but like Delanie Walker was similar. Like Delanie Walker would just hoover touchdowns in Tennessee.
That one guy gave you like 100 times the production of any combination of 4 Patriot tight ends.
Tight end is and everybody who plays fantasy knows this. Like once you miss Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller, you might as well wait till like the 15th round.
Yep,
because they're all going to give you the same production at that point. Like if you get, Waller was a new one this year. He was you could steal him late this year. It's not going to happen next year. He's going to be up there with Kelsey will go first, but he will go second probably. Maybe Kittle, but Kittle's. He's definitely puts up stats, but he could also be a comeback player. There could be a lot of great comeback player of the year candidates next year. But Dak will probably win it. Dave, who are your offensive players of the year?
Well, you guys mentioned all of them basically. Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, those guys deserve mention. Derrick Henry's an absolute animal. But I'm going to give it to Davante Adams. I think it was just an absolutely insane year for him. I love watching that guy. And the funniest part about it all is that all the Green Bay people were freaking out after his first 2 years because he didn't have like insane stats, and he's just been an absolute monster ever since. You look at his game log, he had 3 games where he didn't score a touchdown, and he had almost as many games where he scored 3 touchdowns as where he scored none. He had 2 touchdowns in 4 or 5 games. He had a touchdown almost every one. He had basically 10 to 12 to 14 targets every game. One game he had 17 targets. This guy is just an absolute monster, and he plays with a QB that's just an absolute crazy lunatic throwing the ball. Like we talk about Mahomes, like throwing his sidearms and behind the back without looking, whatever. Like Aaron Rodgers can do whatever he wants on the field. This is the 3rd year in a row he's led the league in interception percentage. He threw 48 touchdowns with 5 interceptions. That is just
pretty good. And I think one of the big differences that people don't recognize too between a guy like him and Mahomes is Mahomes led the league in interceptable passes. Yeah. On top of his 5 interceptions, Mahomes had 16 dropped interceptions. Like it's insane how lucky he got without throwing interceptions, whereas Aaron Rodgers just doesn't do it.
Yeah. And it's like this is the 3rd year and in 5th time in his career, he's led the league in interception percentage. This guy just does not throw interceptions. Every year he's in the league leaders of touchdown passes. It's not like this guy just, throws 10, 12, 15 touchdowns. He throws 30 to 40 touchdowns every year. And we talk about it. Like you already said, he's thrown to Robert Tonyan, Donald Driver, Randall Cobb, who's been like in and out of the lineup for like what seems like 15 years at this point. It's just like every year he gets these new guys. Tom Crabtree last year. It's like you got these random guys that feel like they come off the street, and they just suit up for one game. He throws 3 touchdowns to them.
Rodgers throws to guys that are like the 5th year of fantasy, like 5th year college, like Madden players that will just come up like randomly, like Jones McKenzie. Like he'll be out there just catching passes from Aaron Rodgers, like just guy that you've never heard of before. Davante Adams though, Packers better get the checkbook out pretty soon because
pay that man.
You're getting the bag pretty soon.
Anything he wants, you pay that man. Back up the Brinks truck.
That man.
You don't let go of all pros. You pay the all pros. You let go of the Pro Bowlers.
Speaking of pay the all pros, what's the deal with Jair Alexander's contract? Are you going to get the bag soon too, or is he locked up?
He's got to get the bag soon. He needs a new contract.
I can play. I am another guy I was not very high on that ended up having a very good year.
So now we are on to the big one, most valuable player. So my number 1 and 2 are obvious. We'll get into it, but I do like to include somebody who I think actually had immense, like obviously the top 2 had value for their team, but a guy who completely changed the system. So my number 3 is a little crazy. But my number 3 is Stephon Diggs. So let me explain why. Josh Allen had the offense was reinvented by Brian Daboll, but Stephon Diggs added an element to that offense previously unforeseen. He gave Josh Allen a legitimate number 1 weapon. He made catches that were unbelievable. He had one of the best seasons of his career, the best season for a wide receiver, traded and then brought into a new system, and that's probably not an easy thing to do. And he had doubters about whether he would have fun in Buffalo or whether he would excel in Buffalo. And Stephon Diggs proved me wrong. I mean, he obviously won't get any real MVP votes, but he at least has a third place vote from me because I think what he brought to that system was so incredibly valuable. I don't know, even with Brian Daboll, I don't know if we see the same results out of Buffalo this year if Diggs is not lining up on the far right side, the far left side for Josh Allen to throw to. My number 2 is Mahomes, and my number 1 is Rodgers. It absolutely pains me to say this about Aaron Rodgers. As I just said, I do not like him. But like Wes Mantooth says in Anchorman, I do not like you, but damn it, do I respect you? And I kind of have to. I mean, the guy had 51 total touchdowns, threw 5 picks, and I was watching the Bears game last night, and anytime he got more than 2 seconds to throw, I'm like, he's going to complete this. Unless they get to him immediately, he's going to complete it. And that's just whether that'll translate to the playoffs. It almost never has for the Packers, even when they've been elite. It almost never has. But right now, there is no doubting that, at least in my mind, I love Mahomes. I'm not like Shime. I love Mahomes. I think he's an incredible, incredible quarterback. I just think that Rodgers has made fewer mistakes this year. And as a result, I think he is the MVP of the NFL.
I think Aaron Rodgers, not only has he made fewer mistakes, I think he works with less. I think Matt LaFleur doesn't get enough credit for what he's done for that offense. And I kind of said this last March. Aaron Rodgers was my big dark horse MVP candidate because he was sitting at plus 3,000, and quarterbacks in their second year in a Shanahan-esque offense seem to explode. You look at Matt Ryan in 2016, and now you look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers. The LaFleur system just fits exactly what he wants to do, and he plays unbelievable football. He led the league in completion percentage, touchdown passes with 48. The guy almost had 50 touchdowns, touchdown percentage, interception percentage, adjusted yards per attempt, quarterback rating, and QBR. And so here's a fun little stat for you. The top 2 ever single season quarterback ratings go both to Aaron Rodgers in one of his MVP seasons previously, and then number 2 would be this year at 121.5, which is a ridiculous number. That's how good this guy is. He plays at an otherworldly level when he wants to. That is just remarkable. And I think the ability to get Aaron Jones in there to give him some form of running game really kind of just allowed him to flourish in this Matt LaFleur system. And he just carved everyone up. And for me, it was just, there's zero hesitation in the fact that Aaron Rodgers deserves this award more than anybody in football. He had a ridiculous season from an efficiency standpoint, from a statistical standpoint, and from just an outright balling standpoint. Aaron Rodgers is without a doubt my MVP.
Yeah.
What say you?
I have a list of players here, but I don't even want to read them because I only want to say one name, and it's Aaron Rodgers is the MVP. And people can argue about Mahomes and Kamara and Devontae Adams and Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook.
What about Taysom Hill? What do we feel about Taysom Hill as MVP?
He belongs in Madden. It's just a gadget.
I'm still mad that they started Taysom Hill over Jameis Winston. I didn't get a single start from Jameis Winston this year. I am furious.
Yeah, I can't blame you. He
threw for 5,000 yards last year.
Exactly. I get he threw 30 interceptions, and that's not great, but he at least can throw the football, with some sort of consistency. Whether it ends up in the receiver's hands, we don't have to worry about that.
It ends up in someone's hands.
That's the thing. No matter what, a Jameis Winston game will always be exciting. That's why I'd be okay if he was the next quarterback of the New England Patriots, because at the very least, it is gonna be an exciting game.
Can you imagine Bill with like his tablet looking at the defense after he threw his 30th interception? He'd probably spontaneously combust.
The amount of tablets and phones that would be spiked if Jameis Winston was the quarterback of the New England Patriots would be astronomical.
Who do we think is the quarterback next year in New England?
Realistically,
let's do it this way. Realistically, and then dream scenario. First is realistically.
So honestly, I think it's Matt Stafford. I think it just makes
realistically
sense.
Too.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense. I think the Lions need to fully exercise that building and restart. And Matt Stafford is not in the plans for them. And I think he needs a fresh start as well. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for him. I think number 2 would be a rookie. I think realistically, you're looking at a young guy like a Kyle Trask or Mac Jones in the second round. They go playmaker, whether it's offense or defense. They're going to go playmaker early in the first round and then go in the second round, target a guy like Trask or Mac Jones and just kind of ride with him and a veteran. If Case Keenum's healthy, get a guy like him as your kind of veteran backup, or you retread Brian Hoyer or something like that. That's what you're looking at. Well, but like ultimately it would be start the rookie and have the other guy as just like your emergency default. And then my dream scenario is, I have 2 dream scenarios because I want both of them, and because I can't decide between the 2. But I want Dak or Derek Carr. It's not like those are my guys. Those are my homies. I ride with my homies, and I have loved both of those guys since they came out of college. I have been Derek Carr's biggest fan since his senior year at Fresno State. There's no one that has ridden Derek Carr more than me. So those are my guys. Without a doubt, those are my dream guys.
Dave, what about you? What's your realistic prediction and then your dream scenario?
I think the most realistic scenario for the Patriots is I think Jimmy Garoppolo gets cut and Belichick brings him back. I think that's like the most realistic thing. That's not what I want. I think my dream scenario, that I have 2. I think Matt Stafford would be a dream. I think he would flourish here. I think he would throw for 4,000 yards. I think he'd have 30 touchdowns, and you can control the interceptions. I think that's a factor of playing in Detroit. And then my dream scenario, as far as if we could draft someone, Zach Wilson from BYU is my guy. Oh. I think he's going to be awesome. He's athletic. He has to make all the throws.
That kid can ball.
Yeah, he's an absolute baller. I think he is the guy I would target, but I just don't see how they get him.
Ooh, Quizzle says some Fitzy action in New England.
No way. I would rather. Oh, if there's 3 people I don't want in New England next year, it is Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
I would revoke my fandom rather than root for Carson Wentz.
No thanks.
I don't want Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't want Ryan Fitzpatrick. You can take all of them, shine them up real nice, and launch them directly into the sun.
So my realistic scenario, unfortunately, I think I have to piggyback on what Dave said. I think if Jimmy Garoppolo gets cut, I do think Belichick's going to make that call for sure. And then maybe draft a rookie as well. My dream scenario, and I'm going to have levels to this. So like my dream scenario is Matt Stafford. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Matt Stafford, like Dave said, would flourish, would have a great time here in New England. And then my like next level Nirvana dream scenario is Dak Prescott, who I've always loved.
Inject that into my veins, brother.
If Dak Prescott somehow ended up in New England, I would shoot through the roof above me, which would not be great for Emily. Because
I don't know if you work blue here on this podcast. I don't really know what the rules are, but if you need to bleep me later, go for it. I would be fully erect for 48 hours and need to seek the opinion of a doctor because I wouldn't be able to control myself if Dak Prescott was the next quarterback of the New England Patriots.
Well, it's not a swear, so I have to bleep it out.
That's fair. A little crass, but you know,
a little bit, but whatever. But it would be incredible. I mean, it would be a pipe dream because. But then again, I mean, Dallas has shown no interest in giving him a big money contract, at least at this point.
So I don't even think it's Dallas, honestly. I've been saying this now for about a year and a half. I think Dak wants out of Dallas. I don't think he ever wanted to sign a long-term deal there. I think he was setting his standards so high for a contract that it would force Dallas to just let him go. Because I think personally, and I don't know what the reason would be behind that. This is not like an insider information thing. It's just the sense that I get is that he doesn't like it in Dallas and wants out. Like he loves Zeke, but I don't know if he loves that team and that place the way some quarterbacks love their homes. And so for me, I've always gotten the feeling that Dak Prescott he's the one that wants out of Dallas, which is why he hasn't been able to sign a contract.
I would be incredibly pleased if that was the case for the Patriots. I'd be ecstatic. And then that would mean that the best quarterback in the NFC East is then Jalen Hurts, who is thrust this year. I'm okay with that too.
So you don't like Zach Sudfeld or Nate Sudfeld? Then?
I really don't like
not
any,
not a Nate Sudfeld guy.
But I will say,
I heard he's a lovely human.
I do want to touch on this real quick. Shai mentioned it. I want Carson Wentz nowhere near this team.
Oh God, no!
Nowhere near this team.
I would vomit all over myself.
I would rather have Sam Darnold on the Patriots than Carson Wentz.
Also, Can we talk about how there's maybe no team in worse position than the Eagles cap wise? Like they're like $50 million over the cap.
What about the Saints? Aren't the Saints in a worse position?
No, so the Saints, whatever they do, what Belichick always says, where it's you can kind of make cap room because they're always competing, whereas the Eagles aren't competing. And they're going to be in such bad cap jail, especially if they trade Carson Wentz. It's like after a certain date, they can get away with cutting a $60 million dead cap into $32 million in dead cap. So I wouldn't even be shocked if they try and do similar to like a Brock Osweiler deal where they trade a guy like Wentz to Indianapolis and tack on like a second round pick so that the Colts can like send them money to take away the cap hit.
Just the name Brock Osweiler sends chills up my spine.
When you're being compared to Brock Osweiler, you know you're in bad shit.
Would you rather be compared to Blake Bortles or Brock Osweiler?
So I'd probably rather Brock Osweiler specifically because he's like 6'8", so he probably has a hog.
And by that, Shine means he probably owns a giant pig on a farm somewhere
and could play basketball real well.
Oh, yes, that's true. He is 6'8". He'd be much better than Blake Bortles at basketball. Mm-hmm. But at least Blake Bortles is a better quarterback, which that's one of the few people you could probably
Neither of them are Frank Gore, but they'd probably be pretty good.
Yes, that's true. Neither of them are Frank Gore, but they were probably pretty good. Or Antonio Gates, another great basketball playing football player.
I was going with the whole hog thing, but yeah,
oh my God. All right. Well, I didn't know that people that own pigs would be so good at basketball.
Frank Gore actually owns a pig that's so big, it's like he has his own tripod.
Of course it does. Yes, it's a big photography major. Yes. Anyway, well, that'll do it for our first annual award show. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Shime, thank you for joining us. Where can the people find you?
You can find me on basically all social medias at Shime Time. Pretty simple. SCHEIMTIME. Nobody can spell the Shime right, so I figured I'd do it for you. You can also find me on twitch.tv/Shime Time. I stream there 4-ish nights a week. Follow me on TikTok. I love good TikToks. Send me good TikToks. I always get a chuckle out of a good TikTok.
Now that I know that, I'll send you good TikToks.
I love TikTok. I have scrolled through so much TikTok at this point that the algorithm just knows exactly what I want. It'll be like anime TikTok, music TikTok, sports TikTok, video game TikTok, random dance TikTok. I'm like, ignore. I don't want any more of this. And then just more of what I like.
75% of the TikToks that come across my app are dogs and puppies, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. But thank you very much, Dave. Where can we find you?
At David_Albiani.
That is correct. Dave just did a Patriots little off-season requiem on the CSL podcast website, so go check that out, Dave. That must have been a fun time.
Yeah, it was. It's a little early to be writing them, but that's all right. Next year we'll be back and ready to rock and roll.
That's right, with Matthew Stafford leading those 12-4 Patriots back to
playoffs. I hope so.
Let's go.
Or Dak Prescott, Patriots 13-3.
Give me either.
Ooh, before we get out of here, who do you guys got for the Super Bowl? By the way, I want to know.
So I don't want to spoil. Actually, I don't care about spoiling it because you know what? I'm writing a little playoff preview thing too. But I'm going to say Chiefs Bucks. That's my pick.
Ooh, okay. Dave, what do you got?
I'm actually gonna go on the edge here. I'm gonna say Bills versus Packers.
Okay. I like it. I'm going. I'm actually going Tennessee Green Bay for the Matt LaFleur revenge game to get Rodgers the second
Yeah,
ring.
that'd be great.
So I don't know if you if you know this, Sean, but I have a bet with the Small State Big Takes crew that if Josh Allen and the Bills make the AFC title game, I have to run a half marathon. And I made that bet at the beginning.
You're
of
in
the
trouble.
That's
I
a tough
don't-
bet.
You know what? I will say this. Watch out for the Colts. That's all I gotta say. Watch out for the Colts.
I'm
That's
not.
a sneaky game, right?
I think
I'm
that's
not
a
too
bad
scared.
matchup for them.
Here,
That's
I'm gonna give your listeners a quick preview. My favorite bet of the weekend: 3-team teas, Bills, the over in that game, and the Bucks. All on Saturday. Get up big on Saturday. Enjoy Sunday. Don't spend any of your money. And there you go.
That's the Shine Time betting minute right there. You got to
Guarantee.
You got to preview what this guy's going to come out hot with. I love it. So yeah, that's the Super Bowl previews. I'm at Jacob_Morocco. This podcast is CSL Podcast on Twitter. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all those fun places. This Thursday, actually just finalized today, we are going to have Mass Live's Chris Mason on this Thursday. We're going to do a little 2010 NFL redraft. We're going to do the first round of it. We're going to be assigned teams, and we're going to go through that draft and see who should have been taken by these teams, because
Nice.
God knows none of them make the right decisions, especially the Patriots. So, we'll see. Especially the Patriots offensively don't make the right decision, usually, wide receiver wise. But anyway, that'll be a fun time. Tune in then. We'll see you guys around. Trivia is on Wednesday. All the fun stuff. We'll see you around. Like, rate, subscribe, all that fun stuff. 5 stars, please. Thank you very much. And we will see you later in the week. All right. Now let me end the live broadcast.